We don't fall in love with people, we fall into patterns. Until we understand our attachment style, we're not choosing love consciously, we're just repeating emotional history with a new face. Early childhood experiences shape how we form emotional bonds. The earliest interactions between a child and their primary caregiver lay the foundation for how that child will perceive love, trust, and safety throughout life. In these formative years, the child does not yet possess language or logic to interpret their emotional world. Instead, they learn through feeling, touch, tone, and presence. When a caregiver is responsive, emotionally available, and consistent, the child begins to internalize the idea that the world is safe and that they are worthy of love and care. This forms what is known as a secure attachment, an internal sense that others can be relied upon and that intimacy is not a threat but a source of comfort. However, when the caregiver is inconsistent, emotionally distant, overly controlling, or neglectful, the child is left to navigate overwhelming emotions without support. The infant cannot soothe themselves effectively and learns to adapt, often by suppressing their needs, clinging to others, or becoming hyper-vigilant to signs of rejection. These adaptations are the early forms of insecure attachment styles: anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. The child may not remember these experiences consciously, but they become embedded as emotional expectations and relational patterns that carry forward into adulthood. In relationships later in life, these attachment patterns show up in subtle and overt ways. A securely attached adult tends to feel comfortable with closeness and independence. They can communicate their needs, trust their partner, and handle conflict with resilience. In contrast, those with insecure attachments may struggle with fear of abandonment, emotional shutdown, jealousy, or difficulty trusting others. The partner's behavior might trigger feelings that have little to do with the present moment but are instead echoes of the past, activated by a familiar emotional dynamic. The child who once felt unseen may become the adult who constantly seeks reassurance. The one who learned not to depend on anyone may now struggle with emotional intimacy. These patterns, though once necessary for survival, become obstacles in forming healthy emotional bonds. They are not flaws but protective mechanisms that were never updated. To understand these early origins is not to place blame, but to recognize that the roots of adult relationships run deep into the soil of our earliest experiences. Insecure attachment styles lead to emotional fear, withdrawal, or dependence. When the foundation of early bonding is unstable or inconsistent, the child develops strategies to cope with emotional unpredictability. These strategies do not disappear with age. They simply evolve into relational behaviors that shape how a person engages with intimacy, closeness, and vulnerability. Anxious attachment often arises when love and attention are inconsistently given, sometimes offered warmly, other times withheld without explanation. The child learns that affection is unpredictable, so they become hyper-attuned to signs of rejection. As adults, they may become emotionally dependent, constantly seeking validation, fearing abandonment, and interpreting small relational shifts as threats. In avoidant attachment, the opposite strategy is developed. When a caregiver is emotionally unavailable or dismissive, the child learns that expressing needs leads to disappointment or shame. Over time, they begin to shut down their emotional responses, suppress vulnerability, and value independence over closeness. As adults, these individuals may appear strong and self-sufficient, but underneath lies a deep fear of being emotionally exposed. Intimacy becomes a threat to their internal balance, leading to withdrawal, detachment, or subtle forms of emotional distancing. They may avoid conflict not out of peace but out of discomfort with emotional expression. Disorganized attachment, often rooted in early experiences of fear, trauma, or neglect, presents a more complex pattern. These individuals may crave closeness and simultaneously fear it. They might reach out and then push away, creating a cycle of confusion for themselves and their partners. Their internal world is often filled with contradictory messages about love, where the source of comfort was also the source of fear. Emotional bonding for them becomes unstable, chaotic, and marked by mistrust or unpredictability. Each insecure attachment style creates a relational lens tinted by past emotional wounds. Whether it manifests as clinging, avoidance, or inner conflict, the common thread is fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of engulfment, or fear of betrayal. These fears are rarely voiced directly. Instead, they appear in the ways individuals react to closeness, handle conflict, or interpret their partner's behavior. Insecurely attached individuals may not realize that their reactions are not necessarily about the present moment, but are rooted in protective patterns shaped long before their current relationship began. Emotional bonding in adulthood reflects unresolved inner conflicts. While two individuals may consciously seek love, trust, and partnership, the unconscious often brings a different agenda, one shaped by the unhealed emotional experiences of the past. Much of what drives adult behavior in relationships is not fully in awareness. It is a repetition of earlier patterns, often rooted in childhood, that seek resolution through present-day intimacy. The emotional pain once felt but never fully processed can resurface in the dynamics between partners. What appears to be a reaction to a partner's behavior is often a projection of a deeper internal struggle, a reenactment of wounds left unattended. When someone carries the imprint of emotional neglect, betrayal, or abandonment, they may unconsciously look to their partner to correct that original injury. But instead of healing, the unresolved conflict distorts perception. A simple delay in response may feel like rejection. A request for space may feel like abandonment. A differing opinion may be heard as criticism or threat. These misinterpretations can trigger emotional responses that are disproportionate to the actual situation. The past intrudes upon the present, blurring the line between what is happening now and what once was. Many individuals are not aware that their relational pain is a symptom of something deeper within. They may blame their partner, withdraw in silence, or overcompensate with control or caretaking. But beneath these behaviors lies an inner child still longing to be seen, heard, and soothed. Emotional bonding becomes difficult not because love is absent, but because the inner world is filled with unresolved tension, fear, or unmet needs. As a result, love feels unsafe, intimacy becomes threatening, and trust is fragile. The partner often becomes a mirror, unknowingly reflecting back the unresolved pieces of one's psyche. In this reflection there is both opportunity and danger. The opportunity to become aware of what has been hidden, and the danger of reacting to the partner as though they are the original source of the wound. Relationships then become battlegrounds of past pain rather than sanctuaries for present connection. Until these inner conflicts are brought into conscious awareness, they will continue to shape how individuals bond, react, and relate, often sabotaging the very closeness they long for. Conscious awareness of our attachment style enables deeper, healthier relationships. Most people navigate relationships on autopilot, guided by patterns they did not choose and reactions they do not fully understand. These patterns are rooted in early attachment experiences and operate beneath the surface of conscious thought. When we begin to observe how we respond to closeness, conflict, or emotional need, not with judgment but with curiosity, we start the process of bringing the unconscious into light. Awareness is the first act of transformation. It allows us to notice when we are acting from fear rather than love, when we are withdrawing to protect ourselves or clinging to avoid being left. Understanding one's attachment style does not mean placing oneself in a fixed category, but using it as a lens to explore deeper emotional truths. For someone with anxious attachment, awareness might mean recognizing the tendency to seek reassurance and learning to self-soothe rather than rely entirely on a partner for emotional stability. For someone with avoidant tendencies, it might involve noticing how often they create distance and beginning to tolerate the discomfort of emotional closeness. These are not easy shifts. They challenge deeply ingrained survival strategies, but they are necessary for building authentic connection. Self-awareness also creates space for empathy. When we understand our own emotional triggers, we become more capable of seeing our partner's struggles without taking them personally. Rather than reacting impulsively or defensively, we can begin to communicate from a grounded place, acknowledging both our own needs and the emotional reality of the other. This conscious dialogue opens the door to mutual understanding, repair, and intimacy. Instead of repeating cycles of miscommunication or conflict, couples can begin to co-create new patterns that support emotional safety and growth. True emotional bonding is not just a matter of chemistry or compatibility, it is a choice to show up with awareness and presence. When both individuals are committed to observing and understanding their attachment patterns, the relationship becomes a space of healing rather than reenactment. Vulnerability is no longer seen as a threat but as a bridge. Conflict is no longer a rupture but an invitation to connect more deeply. Awareness allows love to become intentional rather than accidental, a conscious act of creation rather than a reaction to old wounds.